to the Diner Podcast, where we eat our lunch or breakfast.
We got to unmute. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Now you can intro it.
So welcome to the Diner Podcast. I'm Red Velvet.
Hello.
That guy over there is Uncle Lump. I'm not good with the mirror.
I love that on the video ones you can't quite figure out the intro. You always just stare at it like, what do I do now? We just intro it the exact same way.
Yeah. Just rub it in, pal.
That's okay.
Well, you know what? Today we have a very special guest, Coach K.
Oh.
And I don't mean Mike Krzyzewski.
No.
I mean Coach K, Evan Kubicek.
So the better Coach K.
Close enough.
Okay, how do you pronounce it?
It's different every single time, hence the Coach K.
It's way easier to just go with Coach K.
Correct. Yeah, we just always say Kubicek, like the country and then the time increment. But
Okay.
I literally don't care anymore. It has no bearing on my
Just pronounce it however you want and we'll figure
whatever
it out.
you want. As long as I can cash the check, I'm good.
Yeah. It's good when you can drop that ego and just not care. Like that level of freedom of just like, yeah, I could not care less. You just pay me to do what you need. You can call me anything you want. We're good. Let's just move on and pay me.
I've had lots of wild life experiences that it really doesn't matter. So just go with it.
Yep. Coach K, I was fortunate enough to meet you at the ISBDC small business thing.
Yeah, marketing summit.
Nailed it.
Yes. And I was in your class and you said something that really sparked me.
Mm-hmm. Split. Yeah. It divided the men from the boys very quickly.
So what did you say that sparked him?
I gave an example of like promotional content, such as hunting hogs from a helicopter.
Awesome.
And all of a sudden, the look on the rooms were sheer delight and utter terror across the participants.
Awesome.
Yeah, across that I'm teaching sales and marketing kind of framework, and like, how do you have something that's relevant and clear, right, and gets people's attention, and that particular example did the job very well.
Well, it's such a smart way to go about it because obviously, like, just like you said, you almost figure out who's paying attention and who isn't because you say something like you're not expecting to hear hunting hogs from a helicopter when you're at one of these things like talking about sales and marketing. That it's like, wait, did you just say shooting hogs out of a helicopter? What? And then you get that like, wait, oh, okay, I'm in now. I'm paying attention.
For sure. Actually, yeah. I mean, there's so many ways that now more than ever, you really have to be laser focused on who your ideal person is that you're talking to, because you're competing with every person with a microphone and a camera on the planet at this point, because anyone can drop, a TikTok video versus an ad versus whatever. And, you got people just doom scrolling endlessly. And unless what you're saying is so utterly fascinating that they're willing to wake up for a second, there's no chance they're going to hear what you're saying.
Yeah, we've learned that just with like what videos we can and can't do intros on, or like what platforms you can and can't do intros because you lose them. If I run that 30-second intro, people might not like. Obviously, I'm running that for my sound for all the things that we're doing, and I just like the look of them. But if I'm putting that out on TikTok or one of those platforms, you have to cut that down into a quick thing that literally intrigues them in that first. I mean, maybe a second you have to catch their attention, whether it's by the look or what you're saying. You have to catch them with something immediately on a lot of these platforms.
Well, that workshop, right, was about 50 minutes of me, and I didn't even talk the whole time because no one has that attention span anymore. Yep. So that 50 minutes, let's say I talked for 38, right? And of that 38 minutes, I said helicopter hog hunting, which took 10 seconds. That is what we are talking about today. Yeah, 10 seconds
Evan,
of content.
Do you remember anything he said prior to that?
No.
None whatsoever. The dude was in a whole nother planet. He was like, it was right before lunch, right? So at that point,
you were screwed from the beginning.
Oh yeah, there's no energy left in the body. You're just in self-preservation mode immediately before lunch. He was just trying not to eat his own brain at that point.
Yep.
That's very true.
We do that with podcasts sometimes. Last night he had his he went and gave plasma, so he was kind of in that zombie mode last night, where it was like I was given a history lesson at times, where I'd look over and he's got the like, oh no, no, I'm awake, I'm here, I promise.
I'm here, dude. Keep going.
Sorry.
You're doing great.
You're doing awesome. Great job. Keep talking. I just knocked my headphones off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's trying to put something out there that catches that attention immediately, that draws people in. And it doesn't make sense either, because with like the algorithms and everything, there is a rhyme or reason to it. Like there's I guess there's a way to like stack the deck in your favor, I guess, more than like figure out the real rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah, and it's constantly changing too, and that's the thing, is that people want to do one thing, and they want to ride one piece of programming or product or whatever it is that you do, and like this thing works, and it can. And around here, you know, where we are regionally in the United States, in the Midwest, we will stick with ideas longer than either coast, and it takes us longer to be able to adopt things, but people are still changing things up. You know, you still from year to year. In our area, one of the coolest things to do come fall is wander around some bridges and look at garbage, otherwise known as the Cover Bridge Festival.
Yes.
And now the festivals leading up to Cover Bridge Festival give you the insight in terms of what is going to be the random thing of the year that year. And it's always something different, but you'll see multiple versions of it. Now you've got the Chinese dollar store tents. So you've got about 12 of those every single time you go. But is it going to be wooden planes or whatever that thing is? You see it at the festivals leading up to the Cover Bridge Festival. Like that's the item of the year. That's what everyone's going to want.
Yep.
So there is change and there's variety all the time, but it still always fits into home decor, food chopping product, some type of dried meat. Right? There's going to be some category this is going to fill, and everyone's going. And the price ranges, you know, creep up or creep down. That they move around, but they're always going to be in the same categories, but it's going to be different product types. So if you're just trying to run the same product every single year, you're just not. People just walk by your tent. They're not even going to look.
Absolutely. And I think that's a lot with all businesses. Like if you're not evolving and you're not figuring out, like we've been like, a lot of people have told us that we needed to find a niche, but I get very bored very easily. So having all of the different tables of the diner was kind of the vision of this, where we don't have to stay in a realm. Like if we want to go talk about wrestling, we can go talk about wrestling. If we want to talk about hunting, if we want to talk about sports, comedy, it doesn't marketing. We can literally go into literally anything. And then we've learned like, oh, we can also make content out of everything too. So you kind of mold those things together, and then it worked out that we were already called the diner, and it's like, oh cool, we have a table for everybody. There is a table for everything in this diner, and it's same thing with the diner menu. It's a wide variety of a random array of different items.
The American diner menu is something to behold. You can get everything from teriyaki chicken to a crepe to yes. It's
then welcome to our podcast, because that's pretty much the same thing.
It doesn't exist anywhere in the world other than that diner, and those diners are generally also not owned by Americans. It's usually someone originally from Albania that pretends like they're Italian.
Yeah.
Yep. Because we're around here, we're like forward accent. Yeah. And they'll have American flag on the door. And they have U.S. citizenship at this point, but they are far from having that scope of like, but they know what we want, you know, endless coffee and lots of cheese.
Well,
You
and
just explained my Friday.
Well, it's always a lot of comfort too. It's those like comfort foods and those things, and I feel like that's kind of what we try to do, that comfort thing where it might kind of, it's like that, I don't know, free therapy, I guess, is an easy way to go about it, where like we're just not afraid to talk about these these weird things, the insecurities, the things that like you try to hide. We just will kind of just talk about them. And my hope is that people hear it and go, oh, that's not just me. Like they feel that way too. And we've learned that with a lot of things where people will reach out like, oh, this really stuck with me that you guys said that, or you guys had this person on and their story made me feel this way. And it's like, oh, cool. Like that's what we're going for. So how did your journey?
I had a midlife crisis at the age of 25. I've had multiple bouts of like depression, even though I'm generally an optimistic, positive realist, like let's look at what we actually have. Everything can get better. And then
absolutely
try not to live my life where my work defines my identity. But I've still struggled with that in those transitions, because whether you want to transition between career, job, life, experience, whatever, transitions happen to you, and you cannot trust your emotions. So you're going to find your emotions completely lying to you about reality. And you got to decide what's real, and then decide what's worth putting energy into. And my career has been like your diner. Like I started from like starting a coffee shop that I started in college, married in college. So married super young, started a coffee house with friends, left that, went into the world missions work, and went in to do missions overseas internationally with a focus more on business. Ended up doing that, worked another not-for-profit, came back and taught at university because I had completed my master's in business. So teaching in the classroom, and then back in the missions work. And then I'm with a tech company in Kathmandu, Nepal, and ended up growing that to like 4,000 people, opened an office in Kenya, and doing sales stuff, back consulting, back at university setting, and a whole host of things in between. And I've had to reinvent myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
5 times, in different disciplines and regions and capacities. And it's wild.
Well,
it's absolutely
my
wild.
question,
So,
out of all these career changes, and you've been married the whole time.
What
was your wife thinking? Like,
she's amazing. She's absolutely amazing.
Yep, they have to be to let you kind of do that.
For sure. Yeah. No, she before we got married, she said, my greatest fear is living a pointless life. So just promise me that we won't live a pointless life, that we're going to do things that matter. And up until that point, I was like, I think it'd be cool to be like an HR director and live in Colorado. Like that was my life's aspiration, was to leave the Midwest and then do something in business that helped people, sort of. Because HR unfortunately doesn't do that.
Well, they're supposed to.
They're supposed to, yeah.
Doesn't quite work that way.
That was the original intent, right? So there's an intent and then there's a reality. So through all those transitions, she's we only have boys. We have 4 sons, so she's a boy mom. She's super athletic and competitive, so she loves that and everything. But always driven by an idea of like, we should be living a life that's meaningful and driven by purpose, and that is worth living. If it's just pay the bills, raise kids, so we replace ourselves in the population, like that's why. It's got to be more than that. So she was willing to do the crazy, but even there's willing to do the crazy, and then there's being in the middle of the crazy, and that involved an earthquake in a third world country where like 7,000 people died. Like, so I'm saying like stupid stuff that we've been a part of. So like, oh, you mispronounced my last name. Okay,
not a big deal.
I'm destroyed. My entire identity is at risk now.
So was that kind of the driving force behind opening that first coffee shop? Was that not wanting that pointless? So it was like, okay, is that kind of how that started, or how did that journey start?
So we had friends about 10 years older than us. So we're in college, we're in our early 20s. and we had friends that wanted to open a coffee shop, and neither one of them had any business education whatsoever. And we were both studying business, and we'd just gotten married, so we had the the ability to do that. And they're like, we want you to do a coffee. Now at this time, I did not drink coffee, right?
Oh.
They brought me like coffee for dinner and ice cream, and I proceeded to pour the coffee over the ice cream so that I could even tolerate it.
You that doesn't even sound like it tastes good.
No, well, it does. Well, yeah. Well, brewed coffee is just disgusting in general. I'm an espresso guy. So fast forward like 18 months later, I'm doing straight shots of espresso, pushing through college, and it's great and everything. So, but for us, the coffee shop absolutely was a way to say, how can we love the community? How can we live out what we believe in terms of our faith, but provide something tangible and valuable that everyone can be a part of? Because what we've lost in America is the front porch. Like we don't have people sit down and talk to each other. And the coffee shop was absolutely that. Like we had, senior citizens at 6:30 in the morning getting a cup of coffee. You had moms with kids running to school and people running to work. Then you had moms with toddlers coming in around 9:30, 10. I got the judge and the attorneys coming in at lunchtime, and then AA groups and felons coming in at 7 o'clock at night. Teenagers making out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I had the entire community come through this place.
That's awesome.
At different stages of the day. So yeah, I got to meet people in that time frame of my life that I never ever would have met. I wouldn't have known who the judge is. I've never had to go to court in my life, right? So I'd have no idea that was our judge and he likes this type of drink. Or Dave the math dog that went on David Letterman because he could do basic arithmetic. And he was a plain bagel with cream cheese every day. Right? There's like all these different people that's fundamentally it's one of the reasons why I love business so much.
Yeah.
Is that it's a sustainable way to solve a problem. That as long as people feel the pain of that problem enough, they'll keep coming back and solving the problem that way. And I'm more than happy to solve that problem because every time I solve it for you, I also benefit.
Yeah. Well, you just all feel better. Like you have that feel, that relief comes. Because we've had that where I tell my students. Oh, you're fine. Go ahead.
I tell my students all the time, have you ever gone and got your car repaired and then you actually thanked them as you paid them $375? You're like, here's $375 of my dollars. Thank you so much. Because if you didn't fix this, I wasn't going to get to work. I wasn't going to get to class. I wasn't able to do what I was able to do. And I thought the transmission was shot and it was just a sensor. So in my mind, I'm like, I've got to buy a new car. And all of a sudden you're like, no, $300, you're good to go. And I'm like, the sky's parked. And I'm like, thank you so much. And I get my car back, which the day before I was like, I hate this car. It's annoying. Now all of a sudden I love it again and it's a gift.
Yep.
And you charge me $300 to do that.
There's been times when I took my truck to the dealership, they said $5,000 was it cost to fix it all. I said, yeah, just do the oil change and I'm out. I took it to my other guy and he only charged me $1,000.
Got to have a guy.
Yeah.
You always got to have a guy. Well,
and that's just finding the right people. Like that's just not having the wrong people out there and finding the people you can trust. Cause I think that's a lost perspective to an extent where like thanking someone after you handed the money. Cause like, that's kind of like that's the thank you in most cases is like, well, yeah, I have to pay that. But if you have that mindset that like you're pissed about it and that it's a negative thing, then yeah, you're not going to thank that person. But if you're excited and happy that they're fixing that car and now you have transportation again, that's like kind of that flip flop of that perspective. And now it's a blessing that you got to hand that person $300 instead of the $5,000 or in your case, the $5,000 compared to the $1,000 because you were, intelligent enough to go, well, that seems a little iffy. Let's go get a second opinion. But in most cases, people are, genuinely just using their knowledge and their things they've learned, and obviously you're paying for the parts and services. Now there is some price gouging out there for sure, but I hope that in most cases it doesn't happen.
It's just a matter of how much time. I mean, I guess for better or for worse, like I'm willing to solve problems in unusual ways all the time. It doesn't matter what. Like, I think that's a consistent for me across the board. Is like, I built my own home too, right? So like, I couldn't even use a saw when I started. I bought a worm drive saw so I could see the blade, because most circular saws, you're like, blade's over there. I'm just hoping this thing is going straight. I wanted to watch it, and the only way to do that is to buy a worm drive saw. I didn't realize they spin the opposite direction, right? So I put the blade on wrong, and I'm just like literally smoking a board. I'm just going at it, and like smoke is billowing out on a 2x8, and I'm like, this is the hardest. I guess this is just how hard it is to saw things.
So I kind of want to dive back into, like, so when the coffee shop, when that kind of ran its course, how did that kind of play out in transitioning into like you figuring out what to do next? Because that's another thing I feel like in business where we've run into, where it's not necessarily a failure. You just see like a thing you thought was going to work didn't work, so you learn that lesson from it, and then it makes you go, oh, we just needed to do this way, or we needed to upgrade this thing. And it's that same thing, that ever changing in your business. So how did that kind of come out at the end of that, where it transitioned into kind of where you're at now?
As I went through, because I had a very different, it was a paradigm shift. Like, it wasn't just I'm going to go do this other thing next, because I wasn't ever really wanting to make a career of business for me. I really felt like I was supposed to study business, so I did, and I enjoyed it. I always enjoyed it, but I always like, if I'm really going to do something meaningful that makes a mark on the world, then maybe that should be in ministry, humanitarian work. The things that like, these are the people that really care and help the world. So at that time, it was like that's the approach we should go. So we had this opportunity to go consider, could we teach other people that do missions work or humanitarian work, go and start coffee shops wherever they would land in the world, right? So that's where that transition led to that. But it's like in that transition, right? I'm an MBA student, right? I'm trained MBA. I know what profit and loss and success looks like. So I look at our numbers, and as a business, we would break even at best. And then I look at how well on relationship building had I personally done. Like, how many people did I feel like I really made a big difference in their life? And I couldn't really think of anyone that said, like, thank you so much. Like, having a relationship with you changed my life. So I'm looking at my profits and loss on the financial side, and my profit and loss on the relationship changing someone's life, and they're both zero. So I'm like, awesome. I thought I was doing great, but I'm actually just zero for both. And I'm about to go teach other people how to do this, and I'm a fraud. That was the mentality. So then I go into this idea like, all right, now I'm going to go in and total imposter syndrome. And then in the world of missions work, most missionaries, it's changing, but most missionaries, like, they go out and they raise support from churches and families and friends to pay their salary. And that's just, if you can write a good letter, someone will give you money. And that's totally separated from that world of value creation, where if I do a good job, I get paid. This was, whether I do a good job or not, I'll get paid. And people will think I'm doing something really great. And that was, for me, just utterly depressing, because all of a sudden my whole concept of what is valuable, I didn't know what that would look like. So when we left the area from the coffee shop, I was literally completely, thoroughly depressed and like emotionally numb, and sat and stared at the wall. It was bad.
So what you just said there, do you think that's part of what hinders like a lot of workplaces and just worldwide in general, where like whether the business owners don't know how to handle the pay portion or the incentive portion to where that does, because I've worked places that's been like that, where it seems like the underperformers always kind of get taken care of, or like there's always incentives to push the underperformers, while the people who are doing everything, making all the money, they're just like, well, yeah, they're already doing their job, we don't need to incentivize them to work.
More work.
And it's like, well, yeah, I understand that, but if we lose those guys that are out there killing it for us all the time, that's very detrimental to what I'm doing. So while this guy, I understand we want to build this guy up and get him there, you can't leave those high performers out either, that are there every day doing their job with no like need to be, supervised, managed, micromanaged. Like, you make life easy on that boss. I always appreciated those people, and I wanted to incentivize those while trying to figure out how to build up those under guys to get them to that level. So for me, it was the opposite. I always wanted to incentivize my top guys, and then I would throw incentives to my lower performers. But in all fairness, it's like, well, yeah, I need you to build up to at least the status quo, and then we can start working on incentives. Let's get the job done first, and then we can talk about incentives.
I guess for me, the question is like, what's the most loving thing to do with someone that is not performing well? And if I've done all that I can do to help provide them with the training, support, and structure, and it's just clear they are not going to excel in this role.
Mm-hmm. Well, because some people just don't want to be there.
They don't want to be there, but they're also just like, everyone has strengths, everyone has weaknesses.
Yep.
You always, always, always have those weaknesses. And if you've accepted a role that requires you to work in an area of your weakness consistently, like that's a key job requirement. Like if you say like, yeah, I can be a bookkeeper, and you literally can't add.
Yep.
Like you're just numbers just do not make sense to you. I mean, you can strip an engine down and rebuild it in an hour and a half, but you cannot do basic arithmetic. And you take a job as a bookkeeper because it pays $3 more. Like, maybe you shouldn't do that. And
yeah.
The most loving thing that I can do is, even if I send you to some training and some workshops and you're still just like not clicking and you're frustrated, the most loving thing I can do is fire you. Whether you're willing to make that recognition of your own strengths and weaknesses or not, it's not loving to drag you on and let you stay frustrated.
Yeah, well, because you're also setting them up for the next chapter of their life, because some people don't see that what they're doing just isn't meant for them. This just may not be part of your path.
Not working here.
Yeah, if you're, because I was like that. I was getting so much anxiety working on an Excel spreadsheet that I would, like 10 minutes in, have to get up and walk away, because that just blood curdling anxiety is just running through my body, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go. Like, I can't. I gotta go do something. I can't sit in front of this computer anymore. And then like doing things like this and talking and being out, whatever we're doing, like those are the things that make me happy, and I don't get that anxiety. I have fun, and it's like, okay, this is what I need to do.
Work.
Yeah,
because you're a salesman.
Fair. Yeah, I always did sales, so just talking to people is just what I've always done. So like breaking out of my shell and like talking to humans as normal humans, and not because I'm trying to sell them something, it was a whole different process for me. But it also, I think, made me
people that fear sales, right? It's like, there's people that love numbers and they love to make lists.
That's me.
Yep. We have a good yin and yang going over here, where we have very similar brains, but we complement each other on a lot of our opposites. Because I was a very I did door to door. So I was just walking down the street, walking up to a door, donk, donk, donk. Absolutely. Hey, what's up? I'm Jared from blah, blah, blah. And just going about my thing. And that's what I did all day long. So like going up and talking to people isn't isn't a problem. It was the like want to go talk to people after you get told to go fuck yourself 85 times a day. That tends to wear on you after a while, or the doors slam in your face or whatever. Like that is not a world for everybody. And I didn't realize that until I was that deep into it, like in leadership, where like you have people that are just like, they're literally out walking in the snow, just pressing buttons on a thing because they're so scared to go up and knock on the door. And it's like, then you find out like, oh, this person has like an anxiety going up to this door. Like, hey, this might not be the position for you. Like you're anxious about the job. Like that.
Yeah.
That is your whole job.
The basic job is that. I mean, when I teach sales at the university, I will cold call in front of my students. I'll pull out my phone and I'll pull up some business off of the Chamber of Commerce list and just cold call them. The anxiety on the faces of my students makes the experience that much more fun for me. Like, you're nervous for me, and your nervous energy just makes me want this call to be as awkward as possible now. Like I want them. Now, I had a really good experience with that, where I cold called a business, just try to book a call to discuss a project for the university. I didn't say that I was a professor, just like, hey, I'm with the university, I'm working on a project, wonder if I could get together to interview. Same thing the student would have to say. And unfortunately, the gentleman's like, I would love to. I'm taking my wife to cancer treatment right now, and I don't think I'm going to be available. Right? Like, the weight of the human experience fell on the room. Right? You're talking a man that's potentially about to lose his wife, still was willing to answer an unknown phone number to have a cold call conversation with someone, and then recovering from that, wishing him well, thanking him for his time, so they could see like, and I was like, and that, ladies and gentlemen, there's not a single call you're going to make that will be worse than that.
Yep.
That's very true.
That's about as bad as it's going to be.
Well, they always talk about overcoming objections. You can overcome most objections. That is not one of them. That was always a tough one. That is not one of those. Like, no, that's where like you just said, that human element comes into play, and you're just like, ooh, yeah, hey man, like I apologize, because like there would be times I'd knock on the door and they'd get kind of shitty with me, and I'm like, well, hey, just give me a few minutes of your time, and like that would be the response. No, I'm getting ready to take my wife to the hospital. I do not have time for this. And you're like, yeah, hey. Totally understand. Like, but as a salesperson, that's what you're taught to do. Like, everyone's telling you no. When you walk up to that door, you have literally 3 seconds, maybe if that, to sell yourself with something that you're saying, your tone, your look, it doesn't matter. You're trying to catch them with something, and everyone's reaction, and nobody wants to be sold. Their reaction is going to be, no, I don't know. I'm good. I don't want it. Go away. Like, especially this time of year when it's cold, it's Christmas season. Like, that was always that month of December, trying to go door to door around this time was horrible, because you have people that
imagine you in a helicopter ripping through a fully automatic, putting bacon on your actual table.
That sounds amazing.
You got time to talk about that? Yeah.
And you catch them, and you just eat literally anything like that. It could be their Christmas decorations. It could be you're just trying to do something other than the sale, because if you lead with sales, they're going to go, no, not happening. Like,
I always felt like that was my downfall in trying to sell a product.
What do you mean?
Like, so with the TikTok shop and stuff, they send me crap all the time. And I'm like, so I make a video because I'm obligated to. I'm like, why don't you try these nitric oxide pills? They work. And then I'm like,
so if you took that same thing and you went after that with the confidence that you did those Pamela Pumpkin videos, and you went at it like, this is the best product in the world, I guarantee you it changes the difference in it's that energy. If you come at it, like if you knock on a door and they answer the door and you're scared, or you look like you just lost your puppy, you're not going to have that same reaction. If you're confident, you knock on the door, hey man, what's going on? And you're just nonchalant. You're a real person. You're not, hello, I am Jared.
Like when I see people on the street when I was locating.
Yeah, basically. And that's the key. But people get in that corporate mindset that this has to be this structured, like I have to say the same thing to every single person, and I don't know why this isn't working. And then you go out and work with them, and then you hear these things they're saying, and it's like, oh, every word in your pitch is turning this customer off of what you're trying to accomplish. Like you're hitting them with all of the buzzwords, basically just inviting them to shut the door in your face. Try it this way. And it's like trying to teach people that as I always tried to go at it like I was just a blue collar tech. Like I'm not out here to sell anything. We're out here messing with these lines kind of thing. Like, because you want that disconnect a little bit where once they realize you're a salesman, you're done. If I can talk to them as a human and I can explain to them, hey, we really have some stuff that can help you here. Because I was very much, if you gave me your price and you were already beating me, I'm not going to stand there and try to berate you and teach you why, like, you need to spend $50 more for less of a product. Like if I found things in there, whether it be the channels they wanted, whether it be the price, whatever, I knew I had an in and I could wiggle my way into those and try to sell them that way. But I was very quick to read the room and be like, oh, this is a waste of my time. Like this one's not go. Cause I'm going to hit 100 doors today. This one door, like, yeah, I could sit here for another half an hour and keep talking to these people, but I'm hearing all of the things that have me down. I'm going to try. I'm not going to just like go out on my sword and walk away and go, hey, never mind, see you later. But it's not going to be something I'm going to spend 30, 45 minutes going to war with, because it's like, there's plenty more doors and this one's got me beat in every aspect.
Yeah. And most products you do, it's like whenever on the corporate side, on the business to business, if you're selling a product where there's a known number of customers, like there's 100 people in this industry, 100 companies that buy this product. That's a very different sales process than something where you're going to consumers. And it's just a matter of just dialing for dollars or knocking on doors. You can just, the odds are in your favor. Just keep going. You're gonna sell something.
Yes. Because and that was the hard part, teaching people that, hey, you're probably going to get yelled at 20 plus times a day. Like just in the areas we're working and what we're doing with the nature of door-to-door sales, it does not have a great connotation. People just see you and they immediately have that ugh. So like you do silly things, like you're up there standing sideways so people don't see your shirt when you're standing at the door. Like, oh, I hope they don't see this logo on here. Like, but you start
a Jackie Chan film, Around the World in 80 Days from years ago, where the Rob Reiner is trying to teach him how to beg. He is like jumps in front of someone and the guy just punches him in the face. He's like, I'm not going to lie. That happens 50% of the time.
Yep. You just have to, and I've told the story. I've had so many conversations with people. Like I had people that had guns pulled on them, and I'm just like, cool, man, go to another area. Yeah. Like that's just part of it. Sure. Like that's just part of sales.
Did they shoot you? Yeah. Did you get shot? And you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out on that.
No, that guy quit. He never came back. He was like, I don't know what you mean go to another area. I'm not going again. Like it was just, it's a wild world, but it's such a fascinating like psychology of people's brains. Cause you knock on that door and you're listening for any in you have and hoping like hell that they've just they're getting some crazy. Cause the easiest one was you knock on, they had satellite and they're paying like $200-300 a month, and it was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. It's raining outside, their satellite's not working right now, like, oh, we've got so many different factors working in our favor now. But then you'd have the ones that they're like, nope, I got this, and it's like, cool, man, I'll just see myself out and thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Coach, I want to rewind a little bit.
Go for it.
When you entered the missions world, where did you go?
First place we went to was Cambodia.
Oh.
Which, when you're depressed, but you're also the father of children, right? And you're like, I'm about to go into a former, all I know is that this place had genocide at one point. And this is completely out of my element. I have no idea what we're about to experience. So I got to wake up. I got to get back in the game type of thing. So for me, what brought me back to life was just serving people, like meeting needs and giving myself when I didn't want to give of myself. Because whether you're depressed or you have energy, you still got to put out energy. Like whether you're happy or sad, it takes as much energy to be happy as it does to stay sad. So I just decided, even though I don't feel anything, like I'm literally emotionally numb, I just started doing things for people, and then I felt better. And I was like, oh, that's weird how that works. So just started doing that, and we did English as second language classes. We did stuff with kids. We worked with an orphanage, built a street using bamboo as rebar, like a bunch of just really random things. And but in the process of it, like realizing, you know what these people would really benefit from would be like a good job. Like they don't need Operation Christmas Child, where people pack up shoe boxes and they go to other countries for Christmas gifts. There was a group we worked with that had a pallet of those shoe boxes stacked up in their building, and they were not passed out to kids. They never received them for Christmas. They just held on to them, and they just passed them out whenever they wanted to. And and there's endless amounts of scenarios like that where people with good intentions do things to help people, and even if they do make it to that person, the cumulative effect of all that aid doesn't. No country has ever been aided into success. It never has worked that way. Like the only way people prosper is whenever they start to create things of value and then find someone to trade with that values what they create. And then the more they do that, like that's how we go from agriculture to the metaverse, right? Like we take basic, fundamental elements of nature, do something to it to make it more valuable. And then as we do that, we create more space for people to do more artistic, interesting things. That's the wild thing. Like since the creation of the world, all the fundamental, like we haven't added new minerals. We've made some man-made things out of existing minerals, but what we have is what we've got. Right? We don't create new elements. They're there. You can argue that now we've made whatever, but to make the new things we make come from existing things. So just humanity has learned how to do unique things with product and stuff. So going into Cambodia and seeing a country that this is back in 2007. So this is pre a big investment that's come in from China recently, and it was rough, really rough environment to operate in. There wasn't really much external companies that had done there. They had manufacturing facilities, so they were exporting. I bought North Face, some backpack for like $8 at a local market. They would make Gap clothes. We bought Gap clothes for all of our kids while we were there for like $2 a shirt, button up, because it's either stuff that the employees are stealing from the factory or just the factory seconds that they never ship. So like the local market is full of these things, and it's literal sweatshops. It's like Vietnam temperatures, right? Because you're right next door to Vietnam and Thailand. It's like 110 degrees and like 90% humidity. And these people are working in massive tin roof facilities with just circulating fans. There's no AC anywhere.
So their production costs were a little lower.
Much lower. So it's just an eye opener of these people. And for me, it was this concept of, why was I born in America, and why are people born other places? Right?
Yeah.
There is, like, for me to really wrestle with, like, if I believe God loves us all the same, and yet my existence, everything about me, even though I grew up rural Midwest and our family had a rough go of it for years, and even parts of my childhood where we even had our power bill shut off, right? So like, I get it to have lack in your life, but there was always clean water, there was always food, there was always public education, there was all these things. I never feared feared for my physical life ever, right? So in the context of humanity, I'm rich, very, very, very wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just the idea. And so what came to mind for me was there's this verse where it's in, I think, First John. It's like, to whom much is given, much is required, right? So for me, it was like, that was my answer to that question. It's like, why was I born in America? And why was this guy that I'm talking to, my age, that grew up post-genocide, had to go through terrible life experience,
Yeah.
right? Like, he loves us the same. Like, I've just been given more opportunity. So it's just, what do I do with the opportunity that I've been given? And what do they do with the opportunity? Everyone has something, right, to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Just what do you
almost is
do
what
with
it's that's almost what it seems like, is just it's that everyone has their own unique journey or path in life that you're kind of honored to follow, and you guys just
Yeah.
happen to cross paths, and his
Correct.
path kind of helped and gave you a different perspective to an extent, where you see these things, or you see the way different people live, and it kind of clicks in your brain where it's like, oh, my problems are so much smaller than this. But then it helps you kind of kick out of that depression, that worry, that anxiety, that fear, where you're like, what am I worried about these silly day-to-day minuscule problems when we're on the brink of World War III, when aliens are coming, when other people live like this? And it's like, but I'm worried about this silly thing that happened in this here, like in front of me. Yeah. And it's like, and I'm throwing that's been, along with my journey, that's been a mental thing that I've like really kicked out of, is not letting any of this little stuff bother me, not letting it, like we talked about earlier with reacting out of emotion, not letting the emotion, taking that second to let that emotion, feel it like it's an emotion. You're
Correct.
supposed to
You can't
have it.
ignore
We're
it. Like,
humans.
it's a reality. Like, I'm feeling this way. Now, what do I do about the feeling? And some feelings, like grief, is real, and you can't speed it up. You just got to ride it. You just got to ride it out.
Well, you also can't pretend it's not there either.
Correct.
Because I think that's
not
like,
helpful.
I've learned that with all of my stuff. If the more I pretend that the feeling's not there, the more it's going to intensify, or it's going to come out in another aspect of my life. The more I take that in the moment and realize what it is, address it. And if I did let it make me act in a certain way, then I apologize for it. Hey, I shouldn't have let me make that decision or act this way, whatever, but I understand it, my bad. And then you just keep learning from it and kind of addressing them as they come, rather than shoving them down and pretending they don't exist, I guess.
Yeah. They're yeah. And until you deal with it, it's not going to go away. Like, it's like, sure, time does help immediacy of the feeling and everything, but there is an aspect of being able to resolve emotion. And yeah, whether you're a child dealing with something, or an adult, like, there's so many people that emotionally have experienced something traumatic, and just emotionally no one ever talked them through that experience, but they're just they get emotionally stuck. There's so many things on the economic development spectrum of things that I try to work on, and I have lots of different hats, lots of different roles, like from professor in a classroom to a business coach to executive director of a co-working incubator, which involves talking through economic development for like 5 counties. And as I sit down with individuals about what do we want, like, what does success look like for us regionally, they're like, oh yeah, we should collaborate. No one disagrees with the idea of, like, businesses and governmental agencies, what should work together. We should all increase our services and opportunities for everyone, for work, whatever. Logically, everyone agrees. That makes sense. We should do that. Then emotionally, when it comes down to, okay, let's go try this new thing, it's like, well, I don't want to do that. Like, that would mean we would have to do something new, which means we would have to take on some risk to do that. And I shouldn't have to take on any more risk, because I've already I already did my risk thing. I'm done being, and now I just want to be in maturity and kind of coast stage. And that's just slow death.
Yeah. Because I think you're always taking risks. I mean, you're taking
to.
a risk starting that business. You're taking the risk turning down this thing. You're taking the risk accepting this thing. Like there's always that
Opportunity cost.
inherent risk in running the business. It's not living your life through fear and just, I guess, if you're passionate about it, that changes everything. Because if you don't like it, same thing you run into just in the normal workforce. If you don't like your day-to-day job, you're probably not going to be super focused on it. You're probably not going to give it your 100%. You're going to go there. You're going to go through the motions. You're going to find your loopholes of things you can cut corners on. And then you get employees that aren't doing the best job for you because you're not finding people that are passionate for your business. And I hope more people find that ability to kind of look at yourself and find these things and learn these things and go, hey, this is what I want in life. And then look at a position in a career that's on the trajectory of what that is. And then start now. Like you're never going to change that if you don't start.
Yeah. The next thing you do is probably it's not where you want to end up. Like, it's just like, is it a step in the right direction? Are you moving towards something that feels like growth?
Yes.
Like even just the basic, I'm like, yeah, should we always be taking a step of risk? Like, just walking is learning to fall and catching yourself repeatedly.
Yep.
Like,
and the more you smack something, you don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, you're like, hey, let's stop doing that.
Yeah, this shit hurts. How do we make this stop?
But the problem is that when we throw in enough interventions, whether that be governmental or not-for-profit or individual, that enables a behavior, as long as the pain of a poor decision is numbed for someone or minimized, they'll keep making that same mistake again and again and again because the pain is not there to redirect them. So we want to. I think one of the largest challenges we face in the United States and parts of Europe is we desire convenience so much. We're willing to sacrifice so much to not be inconvenienced.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole point, is to be inconvenienced, because then you break down these barriers. Yeah, you break down these fears.
Every movie is based on a scene that is incredibly inconvenient for the character involved.
That's true.
And that set them on the path for who they were in that moment or whatever it was. Yeah. There's not a whole lot of like success story movies that start with a bunch of people laying on the couch and then they just never get up. Like that's a pretty that's a pretty slow moving movie.
They're like, the whole movie is just a dude on his phone being like,
just scrolling.
Yep.
Well,
it's called scroll.
That would be a good like side by side of like someone living their life and being productive and someone sitting at home scrolling and like watching how much that person accomplishes in that hour of scrolling, or like, because I've seen those.
I just don't have the time to do what they do, you know.
And then you watch how, because I'll get on there. Like I like to look at Twitter for research for this. I like to be able to know what's going on in the world, but I get about a couple swipes in. I kind of get the gist of what's going on, and it's usually less than 5 minutes. And I'm like, all right, I'm off. If I'm on Facebook, it's because I need to share something. And then I'll catch myself where I start scrolling and I'm like, what are you doing? Get off of it. Stop it. And then I just go on about whatever it is I'm doing. And it's been a hard process. It took me breaking my phone a couple times, and like, not because I was angry, but I just like accidentally broke it. And then I was without it for a month at a time.
I feel like Twitter was the toughest one for you out of all of them.
Yeah, it was. It was starting to like make me like, I felt like I needed to solve the world's problems, because I'd start seeing things, or things would start connecting or clicking, and I'm like, oh, like I think this is what's happening. So then I was like obsessively.
What is the UN doing? I need to go talk to the UN. Just a minute, honey. I got to send an email to the Secretary General of the UN. Because clearly Afghanistan and Ukraine, these guys in the Ukraine have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, they need
I have such a better view from here in the Midwest about how to solve this problem.
Well, and it's more like you're looking at it and you're reading things and you're reading kind of through which ones are bullshit and not, and like you start connecting. But then it was like I was becoming addicted to solving that problem, and it was like, what am I doing? Like,
hit.
Yeah. So then it was like, okay, I need to put this back on our business, put this back into creating content, creating this, and it was like just being able to catch myself quickly now when I get into those patterns where I'm like, hey, we've done this before. What are you doing? Like, get off of it, get out of it and move on. Like we can't control this. Just keep moving. Like you can read about it, you can learn about it, but we can't emotionally connect to it and make this like my day to day where I'm aimlessly scrolling through Twitter, trying to find something new to like and hit that dopamine again, where it's like, oh yeah, I found a new one. And so it was like, and I've done that with food. I've done with any of it where I feel like my brain's getting
the internet can just like the podcast, right? You can go down. I do have a confession to make when it comes to podcasts and technology and learning and everything. I have recently discovered a Google tool that allows you to just kind of drop in files and generate a AI podcast summary of the content. So I've been doing that as I walk my dog. I've actually so part of the follow-up from the workshop in Indiana State was this pitch framework. I would like to turn this into a book, which I'm in the process of putting all together. So I just used AI to pretty much write all the content from the book as separate files. And I took all those files and dropped it into this Google tool, which then generated a 2-person podcast that told me about my book. So I get to walk the dog and listen to someone tell me what my book is. And I'm like, this is awesome. These people are genius. I go, because it's just, we're absolutely in this world now where I can take my own thoughts and turn them into professional content and then consume them back myself. And that is horrifying. The fact that I can absolutely feel like I am a genius. I can create my own Twitter basically for myself.
Yeah.
Where I can echo back my own ideas. Now, the nice thing is that I've learned because in addition to my thoughts, it pulls in other thoughts about, like, one of the aspects I've incorporated has been the role of data analytics, which I understand, but I'm not a good practitioner of how to do it. But the idea of 3 key phases of data analytics and how that relates to all these different aspects of a business and how you can do that with spending no money and how you can do that if you're a large corporation, things that I'm aware of, but I don't practice personally very well, I now have a much better understanding of because I generated a podcast for me while I walk my dog.
That is fascinating. Does it get like, were you able to have it give you like critiques and stuff too, where they're almost like going through it in that film where you're kind of getting the things where it's like, ooh, I could have done that better? Because AI is like my favorite tool for everything because you can, especially in business.
Last week I did an AI workshop here. So I was teaching people some different tools, sales examples, HR examples, operations examples, and using different AI tools to generate value and solve some of these tasks for you. And I was like, I know that I can do this, but I have not actually done this or tried to teach anyone this. So I did the same thing. I had an outline of what I would teach in this workshop, things I've never done. And then I uploaded that whole outline into this podcast generator. And then while I vacuumed our space, because our cleaning company quit, so I'm in here vacuuming and I'm salty about that. I'm like, I got to get prepped for this workshop. So I'm vacuuming the facility, listening to a podcast talking about what I'm about to teach. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can teach that. Because once I could hear it being described, I was like, oh yeah, I could totally, that's not a problem at all. And then I went and created my examples and done. So yeah, that aspect of, it doesn't matter what the technology advancement is. There's things that it can do well. I mean, you go back to John Henry and steam engine. Like when you can incorporate a technological advancement with human, human and tech better is better than human alone or tech alone. It always has
Absolutely.
been, and it always will be, because technology is, once again, it's just an extension of human creation.
Well, and that's why I
It's
hope
just,
the right people figure out AI, because it obviously can go the iRobot approach, where these Tesla robots basically just take over the world, and that's our workforce. That's everything. Yeah, essentially. But you can also integrate it where we as humans utilize it. Like I've told stories on here. I used it to rewrite the Bible for me. I had it rewrite it in different fashions that I could understand, and we had it dumb it down to like professional wrestling, and we literally had it write it out like it was a wrestling storyline. And then I got to read it in a term that I understood, but it made me understand it better. And I use it for everything, like whether it's business ideas for us or things that I'm thinking about, healthcare things. If I'm reading something on Twitter and I'm like, my bullshit meter kind of goes off, I'll plug it into AI. Hey, what's going on with this? Is this real? Like why Elon Musk has not integrated Grok into the community notes yet, to where it's just live fact checking you in real time, does not make any sense to me, because they can do that, but then you don't have to guess what's real and what's not, and you're not trying to decipher the news in real time with 80 million people. Yeah, fair point. Yeah. And that's, so then you want to just keep trying to scroll to figure out what's real and what's not. So I assume that's why they don't do it. But you can utilize, I've written like stories for my kids, like all these businesses. If you have a problem in your business, just ask it. It's like having the smartest person in the world in your pocket at all times. Like it's free on Grok now. You don't even have to pay for it. The Chat GPT is free, and you can just, anything you're curious about, you can just type it in and it'll give you a breakdown, and then you can just keep talking to it like it's the world's smartest human that understands exactly what you're asking it. And I can just have like full-fledged conversations with it, and my wife will come through and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just talking to AI, having a fun conversation, learning about things. And because I'll hear something or I'll read something, I do it a lot with like the political connections and conspiracies, because I like to connect the dots. So I'll ask it about one, and then I'll go, okay, this is interesting. Well, you said this. How does this connect with this one? And it'll go, that's fascinating. And it will connect the dots for me and show me all of the ways that this conspiracy connects. So then that's when I would start getting addicted to Twitter, because I would start finding things and I'd start plugging it into my conversations going, ooh, and I was becoming like a detective.
I've cracked the code, everyone.
Yeah, just crack the code and my brain all at the same time. So, there is a downfall.
Yep.
But yeah,
it's a new rabbit hole. That's what I couldn't imagine what we had after Google, and it's this, right? It's because now I don't have to search. It just tells me, just teaches me, but doesn't even just teach me. It's just like, okay, here is the outline. This is what you're going to do. You're just going to say this.
Well, there's no bias.
It depends on the platform, right? Because there's
fair point. Yeah, fair point.
In this podcast, like it pulls in things. I'm like, I didn't incorporate that example, but it threw in like a diversity example, which is like not the end of the world, but that was not a part of anything that I requested.
But that's because you're using Google's.
Correct. Yeah, but I mean, to that point though, in terms of having lived in Africa and Asia, working with people, right? There is a fundamental cultural difference in terms of value, problem-solving methodology, how they approach situations, how they confront a problem. Because it's not like they don't make advancements; they do. Everyone solves problems different, unique ways. So, and I've literally been an English to English translator. I had one of my Kenyan employees come over from Kenya to meet my management team in Nepal, and all three of us are speaking English. And my Kenyan employee speaking English and my Nepali employee speaking English cannot understand each other because of the enunciation and the type of English and the word choices that they would use. Now, I could understand both of them totally fine. And I knew exactly what Sunil was saying. I knew exactly what Leia was saying, but they were completely missing each other. So I'm standing there converting his English to her English and her English to his English. And they both are incredibly competent, intelligent individuals that do really good work, but just come out. So, and by listening to their perspectives, I had a totally different approach to how I would work by having an Asian perspective and an African perspective and a North American perspective. So in terms of diversity, and it wasn't, and even nothing to do with ethnicity, it can be just the like West Terre Haute.
Yeah.
Those are very different communities, right?
Yes, they are.
So just that alone, you've got a bridge and some turtles separating you, and that's all that's going on. But these are very different life experiences of people that do not see a development in the same town the same way. And when you bring both of those perspectives to the table, you're going to get a better outcome. But if you just listen to one or the other, you're going to exclude a whole pool of knowledge.
Well, and that's where like everyone talking, like you talked about with the coffee shop, with what we try to do with the podcast, like just hearing every walk of life story, hearing different people's journeys, different people's thought process. Like you just learn more as a human. You learn more about other people's perspective and other people's like thoughts about things and how they operate or what happened to them in the past or whatever it is. And the more you peel that onion back, the more it makes you understand that person. The more you hear like, oh, this happened to you back then, and that's why you do this thing, or this is why you're scared of this, or this is why this gives you anxiety. And you kind of like put those pieces together. So rather than seeing them react that way or seeing that, like now you know how to help them handle that situation. Now you know how to communicate with them, and then you're helping eliminate those triggers as well, not just them being able to talk to you about it, but then you're also understanding, whether it's your spouse, your kids, your friends, whatever it is. Now you're aware of how you're treating them or how it's perceived that you're treating them. So then you try to do that differently of like, okay, well, I need to change this, but it's just taking that ego out and looking at yourself. Like I always just look at, what did I do wrong? Like, what did I do here that if I don't like the reaction or I don't like what's going on, what did I do wrong? And how do I adjust what I did to make sure that we either don't do that or we do it differently next time? And then it just makes everything easier. I'm not blaming other people for things that I don't like they had a different perspective of that situation.
Yeah, and the opposite of it. It's like there's a lot of people that had a really interesting interaction a couple months ago. I had an individual walk up to me, and they interpreted me smiling at them as me laughing at them.
Oh.
And I was like, no, I was just being friendly. I just think it's just generally trying to be joyful and pleasant.
Yeah.
And the look on their face was like they didn't believe that was possible. Right? It was kind of like,
so sad.
I don't think. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like this individual has so much internal conflict in their life at this moment, right? That they're interpreting friendly human interaction as a form of condescending behavior towards them as a person, right? So then some people will say like, oh, you're right. Like maybe I should stop smiling at people because I don't want people to feel. Then all of a sudden you got this person that has RBF all the time walking around. You're like, oh, that person's always angry, right? So it's like that. Just because you get a response from someone doesn't mean you should stop doing what you're doing, but it does mean that you can be aware that, all right, not everyone will interpret my behavior the way I think they're going to interpret it. And it doesn't mean that I should stop the behavior, but it should also let me know, like, this isn't going to be accepted universally.
Just keep being you. That's what I look at it.
And those conversations are
shooting hogs from a helicopter is not going to be smiled upon by a large percentage of the population.
Well, and those conversations are going to be for those people that are like important in your life. They're in your life. Like you also can't give a fuck what everybody thinks all the time. We've talked about that. There's a book that we talk about all the time called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And it really just kind of put that into perspective of like, if you wander around caring about what everybody's doing or what everybody thinks about you, you will literally live your life appeasing people or trying to do things differently because you think that this person, but you're literally just taking your perspective of yourself and projecting it onto people that aren't really saying this shit. So then it was like, oh, duh. Like, yeah, you just have to like understand that you're going to do what you're going to do. Don't overthink the things that you did them. You can't go back and fix them. You can't change them. If you don't like something you did or it makes you feel funky, learn from it and go, okay, maybe don't do it that way again, but you're never wrong. Just learn from it and adjust it, apologize if you need to, and move forward. And it starts making life a heck of a lot more peaceful, I guess. Like that ease of mind comes so much easier now.
I realized something. What my son likes watching Mr. Beast challenge. So there's a new Mr. Beast show. It just came on Amazon this week, and watching one of the challenges where somebody has to sacrifice themselves in order for these other 50 people to have a chance at winning. And you see people in this line of people, and they're like, "Yeah, there's no way I'm gonna willingly drop out of this competition for no reward at all." And then you see the look on the people like, I just want people to know that I care about them. And I feel like I have to do this so they know that I care. Like no one's going to ever remember that this was an act of care. Like, you get your 10 seconds on this 30-minute video and then they drop you through a giant hole in the floor. And then no one ever learned your name. You were number 32 and no one cared. Like that, that act of felt like it was altruistic, and sure you can say it was altruistic, you helped other people, but at the end of the day it's like, why should you have to give up the same opportunity that everyone in this room has for someone else? And like it's just like, no, like they could also just go out with you. Like I can go out, or like it's just different interpretations of it. And that's fine. And if you do, if that's your core thing, is like, I will be the person that will always pay the price for others, and that's who you are. There's still value in that, right? But it's also in and of itself not like one thing. You do one thing all the time does not require courage or faith. Right? It can just be, that's my default. That's what I do. The ability to look at a situation and say, I'm going to go after this thing with faith or courage because that's what I've intended to do, or both, right? This idea is, I think that's how you can live in that. I love the concept of tension so much because most problems we find is like people are in one ditch or they're in the other ditch, and no one should live in a ditch, right? We should be on the road. And being on the road means you're moving, navigating potholes, speeding up, slowing down. Like there's a lot of engagement to make progress.
Absolutely.
Yep. And it's ever changing. And if you stop giving it engagement, it stops giving you engagement. Or at least that's how it feels.
You end up in the ditch. I mean, like you stop engaging and you're driving central Indiana. Guess what? You're going to hit a tree.
You're done. You're crashing.
It's over. If you're on I-70.
No kidding. You're definitely hitting potholes and you're breaking some ratchet straps. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then a FedEx truck is going to knock you off the road, probably if you're on I-70.
Yeah.
Or some moron looking at their phone. That's generally what I run into.
Yeah, that happens.
I about got ran into by someone on their phone, and I physically looked at them and I said, please get off your phone. And then like the look on their face when they put their phone down, and then like the way they drove the rest of the time, because it was just like, dude, you about hit me. We made eye contact in the mirror, and I was just like, please put your phone down. And it was just like, from that point on, that person looked like an old grandma just sitting behind the wheel, like, oh no, I've got to. And
was
like,
this in downtown Indianapolis?
It
about
was
4 a.m. coming back from Pennsylvania.
No, this was just when one of my recent trips to Indianapolis, and it was obnoxious traffic the whole time. Okay. But the amount of people, because I used to drive there every day, that used to be my daily drive back and forth, and the amount of people that I saw on their phones reading books, etc., was so alarming. Like the ones that you drive by and they have a book in their hand or they're looking at the paper, it's like, do you have zero regard for human life? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, I digress.
You can farm kittens at home.
Yes. Or the ones that are just
the bathroom like everyone else, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Or you're driving next to somebody and they're going like this, and you're like, the road, turn.
But shouldn't you be looking at the road too?
Yeah, fair point. Yeah,
there we go.
It's just startling when you happen to look over and you see someone just going.
Like, oh, speed up.
This is why I think I recently just traded one of our vehicles and got a manual transmission, and it's been really good.
You have to pay attention.
Correct. You have to, especially when you're in town. You cannot hold your phone because one hand is on the wheel, one hand is on the shifter.
Absolutely.
The other reason you got that is nobody under the age of 40 can steal it.
Correct. That's a part. That's absolutely a factor.
So before we let you go, did you really shoot the hogs out of the helicopter, or was this just the analogy you used?
I have not, but I do know someone. I'm a volunteer firefighter locally, and one of the guys in our department took him and his sons, and they did this as a trip, and got to film the whole experience.
Yeah,
he spent months loading his own ammunition to bring with him and everything, and then borrowed like a night scope from another guy that is also a hunter. So got to hear firsthand experience of what this is like. Now, on a previous work trip, I got to do a ride along with a county in California in their county's helicopter out on patrol for about 2 hours.
Oh,
so I can imagine what this is like. Like swooping back and forth. Like after about 2 hours, I was about ready to puke.
I can imagine.
Imagine what it's like doing that with a firearm. It's a whole nother level of just testosterone.
Yes, just pure adrenaline.
Yeah.
The videos I've seen, I think basically the way they do it is the thing's open, you're harnessed in with your weapon, and you're just flying over a trail of hogs, and you're just basically mowing down as many of them as you possibly can.
You're Danny DeVito. You're just
you are
start shooting.
You are in the Expendables. You are on the chopper with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it is time to start knocking out some hogs.
Yeah.
We need to do that.
The reason why I brought it up is that I'm exploring the idea of a very unique fundraiser experience in which what I would like to do is I would like to find a few wealthy couples and facilitate a unique experience in which I would fly them down to Waco, Texas, and they would have to stay in a bed and breakfast with Chip and Joanna Gaines. And one of the pair, right? Probably the woman would get to go to Magnolia and shop, and then Chip and the dudes would go shoot hogs, and then and then fly back the next day. I think that would be an amazing weekend experience.
That sounds awesome.
Your kids about, right? So I was like, rather than just do your typical fundraiser, like help support our not-for-profit business incubator, like why don't we just go blast some hogs and eat some pulled pork?
That's a great
That sounds way more fun to me.
Yeah, and what an easy sell. That's such an easy sell.
Yeah,
that is a no-brainer.
At least around here, most people are into it. More this recent semester, So I'm a faculty at Eastern Illinois University, and our mascot is the panther, right? So my students pitched our university president for their sales class final exam, brought him into the boardroom overlooking one of the open quad areas on the campus, and said, this is where we propose we should have a real life panther living in its own habitat here. And it would only cost about $3 million to make that possible. And yeah, it's very reasonable.
Yeah, I was really expecting it to be more.
Yeah, we proposed about 1.5 million to build it, with the union rates and all that kind of stuff, and then about a 1.5 million dollar endowment, because the lifespan of a panther in captivity can be like 15 to 20 years. So this would be a long-term commitment.
Yeah,
to have a panther and everything. And to our surprise, our president said, if you can find $3 million, I'm not opposed to the idea. Which was, for a first pitch.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's not how you're expecting to go.
The door is open. The door is open.
That's
so
right.
I just need some people to help fund my hog hunting, panther owning dream.
I love this.
In the year 2025. So if you happen to have any stupidly wealthy listeners that say, yeah, you know what? Let's go to Waco. Let's blast some hogs and fly a panther back with us. I'm your guy.
That sounds incredible.
If we have any wealthy listeners, help fund this trip and bring us with you.
Yeah, bring the diner as one of the couples. Help
for sure.
out.
Yeah.
We'll be one of the couples. We'll provide all entertainment, and it will be a great time.
I'll get down and run with the hogs.
That's such a bad idea.
I'll do that.
We do a special beanbag pass where everyone gets beanbag shotgun, and we just get to light them up.
I don't know about that.
Let's do that.
Preferably shirtless.
Let's just run
beanbag slow motion.
Okay, let's just make that happen around here. Let's just make our own fundraiser where we have you run and we just shoot you with paintball guns and beanbag guns.
Done.
I already let you give me a tattoo.
I know we can make that happen.
That sounds amazing.
Definitely, that's doable.
Well, is there anywhere that like people can kind of follow along with that journey, and like places they can donate to, places they can kind of follow along with it?
That's a fantastic question. I don't. So organizationally, with the business incubator over here in Illinois, with the elevate217.org that's the podcast that I'm coming to you guys from today.
Okay.
So that's so I'm in our podcast studio inside Elevate. That would be related to business development, entrepreneurial development, really pushing some more tech skill set here regionally, getting people through Google certifications and all that kind of fun stuff. The Panther thing. No, what we're working to in reality with the Panther thing is I actually had the CEO of a robotics company stop by the other day. And he brought me one of those big robot dogs to play with. And it was fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. The fact that they actually sell these robot dogs as school security, and one of the features, I kid you not, one of the feature sets is mountable flashbangs. And I'm like,
shit.
Now envision, if you will, right, a quadruped robot that is fully dressed up to look like an animatronic panther. They got the black fur and everything on it. And emerging from this robot's buttocks is a flashbang in the midst of a beer brawl.
That is badass. Could you add like a flamethrower breath or something? Like that just seems like you could have all kinds of cool shit attached to it.
Absolutely. 100%,
So maybe you rethink this, and instead of a real panther, you just start playing with a robot panther.
A real panther and bring that to the table.
Cool attachments you can put on this thing.
Robo Panther is only $100,000, right?
That's way cheaper.
I mean, this seems like a good investment.
Correct. Absolutely. So
that is
Robo
awesome.
Panther. So yeah, if people just want to, just generally hit my university's socials and say, bring Billy, just that, bring Billy the Panther, bring Billy.
Okay. I'll be sure to send a tweet today.
Yeah, bring Billy.
And
Robo Billy.
Oh, that's
Let
so
them know
awesome.
that we want it.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us and giving us so much time. We definitely appreciate it. This has been so much fun.
Really enjoyable. Really enjoyable.
Thank you.
Do you want to hit our sponsors real quick?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, no. Whenever that's one of my goals for Christmas break is actually get the first draft of that book together that I presented to you guys, to you over at the Indiana State Workshop. So whenever I get that over, I'll pass that along so you guys can look at that. It's just a really simple sales framework.
That's awesome.
Memorize. So, yep.
I'll definitely need that.
Yeah. Always.
Yeah. So at this time, we want to thank our gold sponsors for letting us do what they do. Wabash Valley Plumbing. They lay pipe. That's our slogan, not theirs. Pappy's Barbecue. Meet, eat, repeat. Peak Performance Gym. No peak, no results. RJ's Formal Wear. They have sweet suits. Wabash Valley Adult Teen Challenge. Meeting you at the crossroads of addiction.
That was really hard to read.
Harold's Beauty Academy. They cut hair. Stitch Brands. They embroider stuff.
Nice.
U.S. Lawns. They push snow.
They push sno, not mow grass anymore. They're American made. The slogans
pushing
get
American snow.
well, he always said Wabash Valley Plumbing, they lay pipe. Well, then I said you need slogans because a couple of them already have slogans. So we always added them. Like the rest of them need them. So then they just became the most generic slogan of exactly what they do for their business.
Hey, in terms of, I do advocate Story Brand as a tool to be able to for messaging for businesses. And honestly, the more cute you get, the less successful you are. So it'd be better to be like, snow sucks, we deal with it. People like,
exactly right.
Yes,
U.S. Lawns.
Absolutely that. That's U.S. Lawns.
Oh,
Snow
our next
sucks.
one's going to be that.
We don't.
Snow sucks and we push it.
Snow sucks, we push it. U.S. Lawns.
Yeah.
That's
we
perfect.
push, so you don't.
That's right. I like that. We might be pushing later tonight.
We might be if it keeps snowing.
Oh,
like your choice. Push your own snow and go to the chiropractor, or pay us.
Yeah, I like that even better. That. That's awesome. Chiropractor or pay us. Your choice.
Yeah.
That's the
pain
best.
or less pain.
that's right. Which you might be able to hook them up with a chiropractor.
Yeah,
I think we have a coupon.
we do. We have coupons for those.
We do.
We want to wrap this up.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you again, Coach K.
Absolutely.
We're out of here. Keep pushing. Love you.
Love you.